Missing person cases happen all the time, and maybe we would expect a celebrity missing persons case to never go unanswered due to their status, but that is not the reality. There are some celebrity disappearances that are still unsolved to this day, and we are going to talk about them right now on Beyond the Screen. But before we get into it, I am your host for this one, Joss Bedard. Make sure you guys leave us a like because it really helps us out. In the number 10 spot is Daniel Lind Lagerlöf. The Swedish director disappeared while scouting locations for a film and was presumed dead after his body was never found. His case has never been solved, and how he disappeared still remains a mystery, although authorities do have a good guess of what might have happened. The 42-year-old was scouting locations with two crew members, and one of them was at a nature reserve located along the cliffs of Sweden's west coast. The three of them split up from each other while exploring, but Daniel never returned to the group as planned, and that is when they called the cops. The weather was bad that day and had very heavy rain with strong winds. Police carried out a thorough search using helicopters and dogs, but had no luck. They came up with the assumption that the director slipped and fell into the sea, but that has never been confirmed. We still don't know what exactly happened. Coming in at number 9 is Bison Dell, real name Brian Williams. The former NBA player was living out the dream playing for the Chicago Bulls before he walked away from the team to live a normal life and travel across the world. It was back in July of 2002 when he set off at sea in Tahiti on his boat with his brother Kevin, his girlfriend Serena, and the boat's captain Bertrand Saldo. Everyone on the boat had disappeared with no explanation. Everyone except for his brother Kevin. It wasn't until a week later that the boat was spotted, but had been renamed and re-registered. 2 months after the disappearance, a man claiming to be Brian went into a Phoenix coin shop and had his passport and credit cards in possession and attempted to purchase $500,000 worth of gold coins. His brother Kevin, the only survivor, said his side of the story and claimed that he and his brother started fighting, and Bison's girlfriend tried to stop it, and they accidentally knocked her down and she hit her head and died from the injuries. He said once she was dead, the captain said the boat had to return to the port so that he could report the death, and that is when Bison allegedly beat him to death with a wrench. After that, he claims that he shot his brother Bison out of self-defense. He said he weighted down their bodies with bodybuilder weights that were on board and then just sailed on. People believe though that it was all a part of his brother's plan, and that is why he kept his ID and also renamed the boat. His brother Kevin ended up killing himself, so this entire story remains a mystery and their bodies were never found. Up next, number 8 is John Bingham, aka Lord Lucan. In 1974, Britain was captivated by the brutal murder of a woman named Sandra Rivet and the disappearance of the main suspect, Lord Lucan. Sandra was actually his nanny, and after she was found brutally murdered, Lord Lucan was never found again. Ever since the incident, he has been spotted more than 70 times, but the sightings were never confirmed. In January of this year, Sandra's son claimed he found Lord Lucan in Australia, but the sighting never led to anything. Lord Lucan's friend, James Wilson, said he had actually planned to murder his wife and hide her body, but it was dark and he accidentally killed their nanny thinking that it was her. His wife, Lady Lucan, was also stabbed in the process by a hitman, but she was able to escape. People suspect that he is still alive to this day. As for his wife, she actually passed away in 2017 at 80 years old, and one of the last interviews she did, she said she believed that her ex, or husband at the time, had taken his own life. Rolling into spot number 7 is Michael Rockefeller. He was 23 years old at the time of his disappearance, and he was the privileged son of the New York governor, Nelson Rockefeller. Michael was a photographer and an art collector like his dad, and decided to make a scouting trip to an island off the coast of Australia. He wanted to collect the art of the Asmat people who resided there. He and his researching team and photographers explored the village, and allegedly some of the Asmat people were not okay with the whole thing. Michael learned at the time that Asmat warriors would often take the heads off of their enemies and would eat their flesh. Some believe that this is what happened to Michael. He had written everything he learned in his diary, which was later found. However, the boat that he was on when continuing his journey had capsized, so authorities reported his death as drowning, though they never found his body. It is still unclear what happened, and maybe it's best that we don't know the details in case he was actually eaten by a tribe. Cruising into number 6, we have Richie Edwards. The rock star was the guitarist for Manic Street Preachers when he disappeared in 1995 at the age of 27. On the day of his disappearance, he checked out of his hotel in London first thing in the morning and drove to Wales. That is where the trail goes cold and he just disappeared off the face of the earth, or so it appeared. His car was found, but his body had never been recovered. He was declared dead officially in November 2008 with the assumptions that he had taken his own life. But since then there have been rumored sightings and people believe he is still alive and actually staged his own death. In 2019, a book was written about his mysterious death and included evidence that suggests he is still alive. A woman came forward saying that she had given him a haircut and said, "He's actually living in a kibbutz in Israel, everybody knows." However, he is still listed as a missing person and the case remains open to this day. Halfway through, at number 5 is Connie Converse. She was arguably the first modern singer-songwriter in the mid-1950s who was constantly creating intimate songs on her acoustic guitar. Her music only got huge recognition after her mysterious disappearance back in 1974. Within days after her 50th birthday, she sent letters to her family and friends telling them she wanted to make a fresh start. She packed up all her stuff, got in her Volkswagen Beetle, and left her Michigan home, and she has not been seen ever since. Her family believed that she took her own life and suggested she may have drove her car into a lake. 40 years after her disappearance, a New York-based audio engineer, Dan Zula, heard one of her songs on the radio and combined some of her recordings into an album called How Sad, How Lovely. He released it in 2009 and it ended up going viral on Spotify. There have even been plays written and performed outlining her life and her music. Up next, number 4 is Rico Harris. The basketball player had the opportunity to play for the world-famous Harlem Globetrotters for a short period, but after his basketball career ended, he vanished. He relocated to Seattle back in 2014 and went missing after traveling to California to spend some time with his family. His girlfriend said that he stayed in California for only a day and stayed in communication while he was there. He let her know that he was near Sacramento getting some gas, and a few hours after that, he texted her and apologized for missing one of her calls. That was the last time his girlfriend heard from him. He never returned home, and when they started to search for him, they found his car abandoned in a Yolo County park. After countless hours, there was no trace of him, and to this day, he has not been found. In our third spot is Harold Holt. His disappearance was one of the largest search operations in Australian history because it's not a common thing for your prime minister to just disappear without a trace. It was on December 17, 1967, a Sunday morning, when he decided to go swimming at Cheviot Beach with his neighbor and her daughter and 2 friends. His neighbor said that the water just engulfed him out of nowhere and that he was suddenly just gone. The sudden disappearance during the Cold War became a national crisis. The search began immediately. Within the first 2 hours of his disappearance, there were dozens of search team members in the area. Though the obvious solution would be that he drowned, authorities said his body would have been found or even swept to Port Phillip Bay. There have always been conspiracy theories following this disappearance because he was a confident swimmer and a scuba diver. Some people think he was assassinated by the CIA or even abducted by a Chinese submarine operating in the waters of that beach that day. Taking over our number 2 spot is Joe Pitchler. He was a successful child actor but randomly disappeared when he was just 18 years old, and it still remains a mystery to this day. His most famous role was in the 3rd and 4th Beethoven movies, and it looked like he had a long career ahead of him. But on January 5th, 2006, his brother went to his apartment and saw the front door was unlocked, his TV was on, but Joe was nowhere to be seen. The evening of his disappearance, he spent the evening at a friend's house drinking beer and playing cards. Early the next morning, he left in his silver Toyota Corolla, apparently to make his way home. One of his friends at the party said everything seemed fine with him. His car was found on January 9th, abandoned behind a Mexican restaurant in the area. His cell phone and other belongings were left untouched inside the vehicle. His mom has claimed the local police actually botched his investigation and said most of the evidence was lost. His case still remains open to this day. In the number 1 spot is Amelia Earhart. She is probably the most famous missing person in history, and it's likely you know her story very well. Her exploits into flying made her very well known, and on top of being a pilot, she was also an author, fashion designer, and a magazine editor. She and her navigator, Fred and Newton, Noonan decided to embark on a trip around the world back in 1937. But on July 2nd, Amelia sent out a radio message asking for help because they were dangerously low on fuel over the Pacific Ocean. The US Coast Guard sent help, but they were unable to locate the plane. The plane was never found and neither were their bodies. There have been numerous theories about what happened to them. The most common belief is that her plane ran out of fuel and that they had no choice but to ditch into the Pacific Ocean and that they sank after the crash. Alright guys, that is our list. Make sure you leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, but for now I'm going to do some comment shout outs. Alina Me says, I think you should make a list of celebrities that don't have plastic surgeries or with the ones that have aged gracefully. They do exist, people. We have actually done that list before. We have done celebrities that aged well, and we've also done celebrities without makeup. We do positive lists too, I promise. Patrick Stowe says, why can't anyone from North America say Versace right? I don't get it. I don't know how I'm saying it wrong. Versace. Brazilian Angel says, I wish there were men who had undergone plastic surgery on this list. They were on our other parts, but sadly there are more women than men, but we do have men on our other parts to this list. Chris Schroeder says, love you Joss, you are always so upbeat and sweet. Would love to see you co-host with Lucy on Top 10 Central again. Yay! Well, thank you, and we actually filmed a few collabs recently, but at the time of this video they might already be out. Alright guys, that is all I have. I'm getting out of here. I was your host Joss. I will see you next time.